This is Thank You Mama, weekly lessons from mothers all around the world. So a few days ago, we watched a very fun Christmas movie. Fun if you have little boys. With Wayne Johnson being Santa Claus's bodyguard, and Santa Claus gets kidnapped. We had a ton of fun watching the movie, and then I put Kai to bed, and he told me, I'm very sad you never made me believe there is Santa Claus. He's 10, and it's too late. And it broke my heart. I never wanted to lie to my child. I always had a huge respect for him, and I always believed that children understand much more than we think we do. So it felt very weird for me, even when he was little, telling him there's Santa. So I didn't. And now I feel bad about it because I learned through him saying that we do need some magic in our lives. And I'm sad I stole Santa from him. But I realized there's a different kind of magic. There's the magic that's conventional. Everybody wants to believe in, like Santa and Christmas Bunny. And then there's magic that's just our own family magic. And we have a lot of that. So at least I didn't completely steal it away from the child. But it was an interesting thing to think about, and my wonderful guest Jenny and I talked about this in our episode, how children understand much more than we think they do, and it's okay to explain to them some complex things in life. But again, Kai just taught me, keep the magic alive. Welcome to this wonderful new episode. Hello and welcome to Thank You Mama. My friend today, I wanted to say my friend Jenny. My friend and my guest today is Jennifer Holm. And Jenny is a friend, and I'm so excited to have her here because I've known Jenny for almost 15 years now.
Yeah.
And it's always so exciting to have friends on the podcast, and it doesn't happen often enough. Why I'm also excited about Jenny is because Jenny is a children's book author. She is a New York Times and USA Today-bestselling and award-winning writer of children's book, known for Our Only May Amelia, a book which was inspired by her great aunt's diary, featuring a 12-year-old girl living in late 19th century Oregon. Jen, you have to tell me more about this. It sounds awesome. Penny from Heaven and Turtle in Paradise. Jenny collaborates with her brother, Matthew Holm, on several graphic novel series, including the Babymouse series, which was sold over 3.2 million copies and won the Eisner Award. The Sunny series, which is a New York Times-bestseller. And finally, the Squish series, which was turned into an animated series by Cottonwood Media and aired on HBO MAX. Her latest novel, The Lion of Mars, is a USA Today bestseller. And I just said to Jenny, I've known her as Jenny and the mama of Babymouse. But researching for this, I was quite in awe of Jenny's not only prolific, but also successful and imaginative and big body of work.
Oh.
Wow. How did you manage all of that and 2 kids? And a husband.
I know, we should say that's the third child, right?
Yeah, it's always the third child.
Always. Yeah, I mean, it's been a long, crazy trip. I didn't start out being an author. I didn't even study to become an authher or
What
a writer.
did you study?
I studied international relations,
wow.
Diplomacy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just goes to show you, it doesn't matter what you do in undergrad.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, I was a massive bookworm. I loved to read anything, and I still do. And I went to a little liberal arts college. And then when I graduated, I moved to New York City because I wanted to be in the big city. And I started working actually in television. I was working in at a production company, and I was in animation. And then eventually I became a TV producer. I produced commercials and music videos and TV shows. And while that was a very exciting field, it wasn't what I ultimately wanted to do, because although being a producer is kind of like being a mom. You're the mom on
It
the set.
is. Yes.
You handle
Yeah.
the budget and hiring people and making sure people show up to work on time.
Making sure they eat and sleep and do their homework.
It is.
I know.
It's like mom training.
Yeah.
And so I started writing my first novel, Our Only May Amelia, at night and on weekends at the advertising agency. And after about 3 years, I had a first draft. And then it took me another year to get an agent. And then when I got the agent, things moved pretty quickly. It sold to HarperCollins.
Oh.
Um, and so that came out in 1999. And what happened after that was I got several book contracts, but children's publishing isn't all that lucrative, really, especially when you start out. And so I still worked in advertising for a while after that and wrote simultaneously. So it
Mhm.
was around 2001 is when I went full-time, writing full-time. And
Mhm.
then I started out writing historical fiction for young readers, and the historical fiction was inspired by my family's history. And then eventually I began collaborating with my youngest brother, Matt, who's an artist and a cartoonist, and we started doing graphic novels together. So the Babymouse series and the Sunny series. So we are still working together on those. We have a family business.
It's so amazing. But tell me about the first book. So what happened with the diary?
So it's a cool story. So this Our Only May Amelia was inspired by my dad's family. So my dad's family was from Finland. They came over to America in like around 1875, something like that, and had a big family farm in Southwest Washington, Oregon. And so that's where my dad grew up. And when my grandmother passed away, she lived to be over 100. They were cleaning out her attic and they found this little handwritten diary that had been kept by my great aunt Alice. And she started keeping this diary when she was 12 years old. And she kept it until she was 18 and became a school teacher. And it was just fascinating to read the words of a relative from 100 years before. She started keeping it in 1899. So, and she was a pretty terrible diary keeper. She just wrote about like the farm and who she was irritated with and pranking her brother.
Mhm.
But it was just a nice little like look into life 100 years ago.
That's really beautiful that these family stories go down in generations and then suddenly get a new life.
Yep,
And
yep.
readers and everything. It's fascinating. How old is Mouse now?
Babymouse is going to be 20 years old in 2025. She came
She's a
out.
big girl.
She is. She debuted in 2005. Yeah, and there are 20 of the originals books, and then there's a bunch of spin-off series. But we just published a week ago, Random House brought out a color version of Babymouse that are two books in one. You read one book, you flip it over, and it's the other book. So it's
Oh,
from
that's
the
so
original
cute.
series. Yeah, it's really cute. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's nice to see it going to a new generation of kids.
yeah. I love Baby Mouse. In the last episode, the topic was facing my mom's fame and having a mom who was a public figure.
Huh.
And, only now when I was getting ready to interview my guest, who is an artist in Croatia, who researches my mom's artistic legacy and works with her,
Wow.
body of work. And when she approached me first, I was quite angry at her because I felt like so possessive of my mom. And I felt like she wants to take my mom. And who is she to. And it took me quite a few years since she approached me to realize, just before I did this interview with her, it's interesting because for me until then the public mom and my mom was always the same
Yeah.
person. And only before I did the interview with her, it dawned on me that there was a public mom this public figure. And
Yep.
there's my mom, and nobody in the world can take that away from me. Like, nobody can take my mom away. She can research all she wants.
But isn't it so amazing? Basically, you found your mom's super fan,
Yeah,
like
yeah. But I know your beautiful kids. Do you know how it is for them, or was for them, growing up with a mom who's writing such a big and famous, successful series of kids books?
they didn't care.
They didn't care. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's
No, they didn't care at
interesting.
all. And in fact,
They take
with
it
my
for granted.
yeah, they don't care.
Mm,
They just Millie grew up like just taking books from my bookshelves and giving them to friends. She actually she grew up on the Millie kind of grew up on the road with me a little bit because when she was about two, between when she was about 2 and 7, I was traveling a lot on book tours and stuff. And so I missed her a lot, but she wasn't in school yet. So she would come on the road with me. So I have all these pictures of her sitting at Comic-Con and going to conferences.
yeah.
And she is a pretty talented young artist now,
Mm-hmm.
but she doesn't want to be she's a painter. She doesn't want to be a painter because she saw how hard it was being an artist for her parents, her
Mm-hmm.
mom.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, no, I want to go earn a lot of money. I'm like, but okay. And then she said, I want to paint for fun, for just for me.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a wrong way to go about it. It's very practical.
Here's a little story. My father's an architect. My mom was a famous movie actress and also a painter and very successful, equally successful artist. And when I was choosing what to study, I said the same thing to my mom. And this is why I started marketing management and I did my MBA, because I was like, I do not want to be a poor artist.
Yep.
And then I started my career. I had a corporate career. I first worked in diplomacy for 4 years, and I had 10 years of a corporate career.
Wow.
And then, totally unexpectedly, I wrote my first book just for fun and burned out at my job and realized this is wrong. I am a writer. So say hello to Millie and tell her she can try. And it's great experience. She'll do it. But the genes are strong. And sooner or later, the painter will come out and be like, Millie.
I think so too. Like her idea of a good time is just painting while watching YouTube videos about painting,
Yeah.
listening to podcasts about art history.
Yeah.
So I sort of have said, okay, I don't know how far you're going to be able to run from your passion, but
You know what? I've learned, just let the kids, they have their own ways. And
oh, I know.
now I'm so glad that I have my whole corporate experience, that I do have my MBA. Like it later on in life, you realize why you had to go through certain things.
Yep.
But so, yeah, she'll have her own path. Before we go to talk about Mama Penny, I'm curious about, did you learn something in this whole process of writing for children?
I mean, it was completely accidental. So I
Yeah.
wrote my first book. I thought it was an adult book. It actually has quite a lot of dark themes. There's like child abuse, there's death, there's murder, there's accidents. It's very, very dark. But when my agent read it, she said, I think this is a great middle grade novel. So middle grade in the States is third grade to sixth grade. And I said, isn't this all too dark? And she said, no, it's fine. And I think what had happened in the time between when I was growing up, I grew up reading very, very clean. There really wasn't a huge kids book industry when I was a kid. Just it was starting, it was bubbling up, like Judy
Mm-hmm.
Blume was coming out, but there wasn't a real, it wasn't a force to be reckoned with. But in the intervening time, children's literature grew up and it became like as edgy and dark as adult books. I think the best part of writing for kids is that they are just so honest with you. They don't care about your feelings at all. If something doesn't work for them, they will just tell you, like, why did you do that? An adult will
Cute.
never say that.
Yeah.
An adult will say,
Yeah.
oh, I liked your
Oh, I
book.
liked it.
Yeah. And a kid will say, I hated that ending. They're just very frank. So they're the best critics, honestly.
Yeah. But Jenny, I want to go back to the topic of the book maybe being too dark. It's interesting having Kai and raising Kai. I'm fascinated, and this is how my mom treated me as well. It's fascinating for me how the children are much more capable of understanding complex and big and grown up topics than we think they are.
100%.
Yeah. And it's people are like, oh, this is not a topic for a child. But if you put it in there in simpler, maybe context, or if you communicate on their level, you can really communicate very complex, important, deep topics to them, and they appreciate it. I realized with Kai, he appreciate when I sit down with him and talk to him about these big serious topics. He likes it. He feels grown up, and he likes to think about it, and he likes being treated this way. So I think that kind of connects to your first book and the fear
Yep.
of it maybe being too grown up when it wasn't.
Yeah, I think kids, first of all, kids see everything anyway. They
Yeah,
know stuff is going on.
they know.
If mom and
Yeah.
dad are fighting, or somebody lost a job, or
Grandma
somebody,
passes away. Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
They know what's
yeah.
going on. And I think we don't do them any favors by shielding them from that,
Mm,
And
mm.
kids, the more they understand the world, they'll be resilient, they'll be independent, and that's a hard lesson that I've had to learn with my kids, because I think, I had my kids later in life. I had Will when I was 36 and Millie when I was almost 40. And so I was probably a crazier mom. Like I
Mm-hmm.
am a crazier mom, undoubtedly, in the sense that I was just so constantly worried. And I had two very high risk pregnancies also. So that just sort of sets the stage of you just worrying all the time. And honestly, it's only been in the last couple of years that I've kind of relaxed a little bit in my parenting. So it's hard. It's hard for
It
us
is.
old moms.
I know I had Kai at 40 as well. But I think he keeps me young.
Exactly. I feel young too.
Let's talk about Mama Penny. Can you tell me about her a little bit? Where is she from, and what was her life about?
So she's living in Pennsylvania. She's living in the town that I grew up in. She had a great life story that ended up becoming the inspiration for one of my books, Penny from Heaven. So
Mm.
yeah, so she was the direct inspiration for that. So my mom grew up in New Jersey. She was the daughter of Italian immigrants on her dad's side, and on her mom's side, my grandma's side, they were from Key West, Florida. And so it was this amazing love story. Basically, my grandfather, he was his family were first generation from Italy. He was the first kid to go to college. He became a surgeon. Pretty much the whole family saved up money for him to become a surgeon, and was a success. He met my mom, who was a nurse. They got married. They had their honeymoon in Atlantic City, which was like the very glamorous place to have honeymoons. And
Wait, we're
then
talking about grandfather, your mom's parents, or your mom and your dad? Because you said
my mom's
grandfather.
parents. Yeah,
Okay,
my mom's
because you
parents.
said he met my mom, so I was a little confused.
Yeah,
We're talking about grandparents. He met your grandma. Okay,
exactly. Yeah.
okay.
Then my grandma, and my grandma got pregnant, and then tragedy struck. My grandfather died. And he either had, and he was only 30 at the time, he either had, a brain bleed or had some kind of brain cancer. But he was aware that he was dying. He must have been having neurological issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said to his brother, and he was obviously, they were all very upset. He said, this baby who wasn't born yet, my mom Penny, this baby is like a penny I will never hold. So sad. But
Mm-hmm.
what's very funny about the story, not funny, is that my mom's actual name, her name is Beverly. So her nickname is Penny, and everybody always called her Penny because of this apocryphal story that had been passed out in the family, that this was the baby that he would never hold in his hand like a penny. So he was given a nickname from her dying father. So
Mm.
very sad. But she ended up growing up. Her mom then was like a widow, so she moved back in with her parents, my great grandparents, and so my mom grew up with her great grandparents and her mom worked as a nurse to help the family survive. Eventually, my grandma remarried an amazing guy, Mike, and they had a good marriage. And my mom followed in her mom's footsteps. She went to Rutgers. She became a nurse. She actually became a Navy nurse, so they didn't have a lot of money. So if you join the Navy, you get the GI Bill. So she became a nurse, and then she met my dad, who was a pediatrician in the Navy on the West Coast. And so that was kind of a crazy story too. So they were in a hospital called Oak Knoll in Northern California. And my dad met her, and I guess on the first date, he asked her to marry him.
That's what
And they
happened
got
with my parents.
oh my gosh, stop. They got married a month later. I'm like, who does
Oh,
that?
mine got married immediately.
Oh my God.
The
What
next
is with
day.
that generation? Why?
They told me they just felt like they were rebellious, and they thought, oh, we can always get divorced. It's like a joke, a little bit or something, and they never
Yeah,
did.
that is so crazy. Yeah. So yeah, so then she get married, and she retired from nursing at that point, and because eventually we have a big family. I'm one of five, so it's
Oh,
me and
wow.
four brothers.
Okay.
So, and then when my dad retired from the Navy, we moved to Pennsylvania, and he became a pediatrician there. So yeah.
And she took care of all of you guys.
Yep. So she was a stay-at-home mom for my childhood, but then she went back to work as a nurse when my younger brother, it was in elementary school. So
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
can't ever leave the
Amazing.
nurse behind, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. What is she doing now?
Now, so she is living in an assisted living community, and she's apparently going out to dinner every single night with friends.
I love that.
I can't get her on the phone half the time.
That's awesome.
She's so busy. She did not want to move into a retirement community.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we pushed her for years and years. And finally, we got her in 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And she's loving it.
She loves it so much.
Oh,
It's
awesome.
nuts. So
It's awesome. Jenny, now I want to know what you feel like were the most important things you've learned from her.
well, I think that a couple of things I learned from her is that family rituals are important, and sometimes they start from silly things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we put all, especially moms, dads, we put a lot of weight on doing things like the right way and having everybody sitting at dinner at the same time. But the reality is, especially when we're young mothers and kids are little, we're exhausted all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was growing up, for Christmas Eve dinner was always this like big special treat. She would make breakfast for dinner,
Mm-hmm.
pancakes, eggs. And we looked forward to this all year. And it wasn't until I was a mom myself that I realized, oh, the reason she did breakfast for dinner on Christmas Eve was because she was exhausted. And that was an easy dinner. And that's why she did do it, to whip up. But it became like this family ritual that we looked forward to.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have like a roast on Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
We had scrambled eggs and muffins. So I think that's one of the little lessons she taught me. Yeah.
You can break rules.
Yes.
You can adjust, create your own rules.
Yes. Yeah.
Anything else?
And I think the other thing that I liked is that I think when we think about history, right, we think about wars and big things, like a presidential election. But real history, I think real meaningful history is often is family history, is your family history. And it's silly little details about your family history that only you will find funny. Like one of her stories, and it made it into the book. So after my grandfather died, the surgeon tragically died, the family went into mourning, and his mother, Italian woman, wore black for the rest of her life. She just never got over losing her son.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, so my mom grew up in this very strange world where she never met her father, but, oh, you're the daughter of the son who died, and grandma's always wearing black and crying. But my mom was so obsessed with her grandmother wearing black. She and her cousin were like, I wonder if her underwear is black too. So they snuck into her bedroom. Sure enough, the underwear, the brassieres, the stockings, everything was black. But it was just very funny,
Yeah.
the kind of the history of mourning. But it was just like from the kids' point of view, it was funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have other lessons, or Should we talk about what you wish she had taught you?
Yeah, we can talk about what I wish she had told me.
What do you wish she had taught you?
So I think she was very good about encouraging me to do whatever I wanted to do. Didn't, steer me in any direction. And also, in a strange way, I grew up with four brothers. My parents kind of just treated me like one of the boys too. So even though I had a pink room with a frilly bed, I still was just one of the boys. And so in a way, I never felt that issue when I went to the workplace that I wasn't equal to the men. So that was a really good lesson for me. Where I had to learn for myself was that she was, even though she had a small adventure in her 20s, which was moving from New Jersey to the West Coast in the Navy and getting married. Once she kind of went back to Pennsylvania, she never went anywhere again. She just had no interest in kind of going outside of her small pond. And so I love travel and visiting new places and meeting new people. And so I had to kind of teach myself that that was okay, because she would prefer to have had all of us kids just like never leave our small town, just all stay right there. Which many kids I grew up with, that's the case. They never left this town that I grew up in. But I just wanted to, have a little adventure. So I had to kind of push myself to be adventurous, because when I would say, "Oh, I'm going to go here," she'd say, "Oh, be safe. Oh, it's going to be dangerous." And that was always in the back of my head, that there's so much danger.
Jenny, so let me very, very quickly tell you, thank you so much. This was super fun.
Oh, this was great. Oh,
This was really great. We could talk for another 2 hours.
sure.
So happy you said yes, and you shared your mom's wisdom and your wisdom with my guests.
Well, thank you for
With my
having
guests,
me.
my listeners. I always call them guests. I feel like they're my guests.
I like guests.
If you enjoy Thank You Mama and want to help it grow, please take the 2 seconds to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. If you'd like to get in touch, you can send me a mail at info@thankyouMama.net. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Anna Teider, that's Tajder. This was Thank You Mama. Come back next week, subscribe, and tell your friends.